Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie. So sorry about my hair. It looks like it's covered in oil because it's covered in oil and I blow dried it and I thought that it wouldn't look oily, but it looks so oily. This is a disaster. I got like this free sample of like this oil in like an Amazon thing that I bought. I was like, okay, yeah, let's put some of this on my hair, and then it's just like, okay. Still looks like my hair's wet. My hair is dry. It's just covered in oil. Anyway, so in this video I'm going to be doing my June-July makeup recap. So I'm going to go through all of the makeup products that I tried in June and July, and first impressions videos, and maybe a couple things I tried off camera. And I'm just going to talk about any updated thoughts and opinions that I have on these products. So we'll start with primer. I tried one primer and I got this in a cohorted beauty box. So this is a little sample size of the MASCARA Hydra Veil Rehydrating Gel, which is like, it's basically a little jelly that you put on your face. The makeup look today, all of the products I've used are ones that will be mentioned in this video. So I did use this today. It feels nice, it feels quite hydrating on the skin. However, I don't really feel like it does much for longevity. I decided to kind of test this and do what loads of people do, where they put like primer on half of their face and then not on the other half of the face, and then I just used a random foundation and saw if there was any difference in the wear, and there really wasn't. So I mean, it's very moisturising and very hydrating. It also kind of, it dries down and it feels quite tacky. Like it feels nice in the skin, but like I don't really think it does much for improving the wear of your foundation. But I mean, yeah, it was nice to try it, I guess, but I wouldn't buy a full size one personally. So we tried 3 foundations in total. So I tried the NARS Sheer Glow in June. I tried the Nabla Close Up Futuristic Foundation in July, and then I tried the Belle Hypoallergenic Full Cover Foundation. I think I tried this in July as well. I did a whole video on this foundation. This is the shade 01 Ivory. I did also buy 02 Alabaster, but that was too dark. This one I still do need a bit of white mixer with, but the other one was just like, I just couldn't. I just couldn't. This is an interesting array of foundations. I feel like I have positives and negatives for all 3 of these. None of these are becoming like holy grail products for me, but I don't think any of these are like straight up awful. I'll start with the Nabla one first, just randomly choosing the order here. Shade is a tiny bit light for my skin. I think the shade range is not bad. I think they do have a decent selection of colours. I would say that this is more of a sort of matte leaning foundation. I wouldn't say it looks super dry on the skin, but the issue I do have with this is that I do feel like it really sits in lines, like lines that you don't think you have. This is just a very line sinking sort of foundation. I also did find that sometimes if I try and like build it up a little bit, it could go a little bit like patchy in certain areas, not majorly, but like a little bit. Especially like sometimes like before I would set my like forehead, because it was really sinking into like my forehead lines, I'd try and like sort of pat them out a bit, and then it would sort of go like a little bit patchy whilst I was doing that on my forehead, which I found a little bit annoying. It's got decent coverage, like I'd say like solid medium to high medium sort of coverage. It's not full coverage or anything, but it's got a decent level of coverage. I personally like the coverage that it gives. It looks overall pretty smooth, but as I said, I just feel like it really does just settle into any sort of lines that you have in your face, and that's the one thing that's kind of making me not love this foundation, to be honest. And also because it's quite expensive, it's like 20 something quid. I feel like I have higher expectations for a foundation if I'm paying a certain amount of money for it. So I just feel like I was a little bit underwhelmed with this one. Like I don't think it's completely awful. Wasn't super blown away with it. I did film 3 little clips just of how these foundations wore after a day. So I'm just going to insert that clip now of how I felt like it wore. Okay, so I thought I'd just show you how the Nabla Close Up Futuristic Foundation wears. It's been about 9 hours, I would say, which is kind of like the standard amount of time that I would want the foundation to kind of hold up well for, because my work days tend to be between like 7 to like 10 hours. Normally it's 8 or 9 hours. I don't think it wears too badly. Like when I look at my forehead, I do have like a weird dent here where it's come off, but I don't think that was anything to do with the foundation. I think I've just either walked into something or like rubbed a nail against my face or something. But I've like, when I look at my forehead, I don't feel like it looks too bad compared to some other foundations, because I've been trying loads of foundations recently because I'm doing a reviewing all of my foundations video, so that gives me things to like compare it to, and I don't feel like it's one of the worst on my forehead for that. It's not great on my chin though. There is quite a bit of breakage on my chin. Yeah. So I don't think it wears too badly. I don't think it wears great. Like, I think I found way better wearing foundations, but I wouldn't say it's like a terrible wearing foundation. I feel like this maybe is the sort of foundation that I'd probably get along better like mixing it with something. I don't know. But I just feel like on its own, like I'm not in love with it. Like the wear's not too bad. Just based on the other issues that I pointed out, like I'd want it to have really good wear in order for me to like overlook those things. But I don't feel like it's like great. Like it's not terrible, but it's not great. And like it does, as I kind of mentioned earlier, it just has this thing where it like really settles into your lines, like kind of like here on my forehead it's done it quite a bit. I don't know if you can see the kind of little lines that I have just between like my brow area. And it really just doesn't look good on my chin, but I feel like the breakage on my forehead isn't too bad. And the outer parts of my face are kind of okay. It's not looking great around my pore area. You know, that bit's not looking fab. But obviously I've rubbed my nose a bit. But yeah, it's not looking great on my pores. So I don't think it wears terribly, but I don't think it wears great either. So yeah, that's Nabla. I do really like the Nabla close-up concealer though. I would recommend that one, but for me I think the foundation was just not my favourite. And next we'll talk about the NARS Sheer Glow, which I have got on my face today, and I did also review this in the first part of my foundation series, so I have got more kind of thoughts on it in there. And I did try this like I tried this like maybe like 3 years ago. I think I got it as like a Christmas present or something, so I had technically used it before, but it was such a long time that I didn't really remember the ins and outs of how it performed. So I think that the finish of this foundation is like really nice. I think it looks super great on the skin. It doesn't accentuate texture. It's not dry at all. It's got like a nice bit of radiance, but it's not overly oily either. I think it looks really like stunning on the skin. It's a really nice looking foundation. It doesn't look too heavy or cakey either, and it's got pretty decent coverage. Like I would say like a solid high medium. It's not a full coverage foundation, but for my coverage preferences I like a high medium sort of low fold. High medium low fold is kind of my preference, and I feel like this fits that. So like I can't really fault the coverage and I can't really fault the finish. I think it's a really nice looking foundation. However, the one thing that I don't like about this is I just don't feel like it wears well. It's the one thing that really lets this down for me, because if this wore well, I feel like this would like be one of my favourite foundations. I will insert the clip in just a second. Also, the wear test I did in my foundation video, like that was a bit more extremer in my foundation video, but it didn't wear well at all in that one. But then in the one that I done recently, I feel like it wore a tiny bit better, but I still don't feel like it wore great, to be honest, which is annoying because I feel like this could be like a night out foundation if it wore better, but because it doesn't, it can't be. Okay, so this is how the NARS Sheer Glow wears after a long day. I think with the Fenty Beauty powder it does wear a little bit better than when I reviewed it for my foundation video, but I still, just looking at it now, I don't think it's a great wearing foundation, to be honest. There's just quite a lot of breakage and a lot of like texturization. I'll just show you like close up my forehead. It's not the worst, definitely not. Like there's a lot worse wearing foundations, but I just feel like there's quite a lot of breakage going on there, and it's just not looking fab. It's broken down quite a lot on my chin. It's not terrible, but it's just really not a great wearing foundation, which is a shame because I pretty much like everything else about it. This is just my skin. It might wear really well on other people's skins. For me, the best wearing foundation I've found recently is the L'Oreal Infallible. Love that. Would totally wear that for a long day or a night out. Doesn't really come near that in my opinion. So the finish and the coverage, it is pretty ideal for me. I think it looks really nice on the skin. It's a nice foundation. For me personally, it just doesn't really stand the test of time. So for that reason, like I don't think I'd buy it again, even though I like the coverage and the finish. I just don't like the wear. So for me, I think this will probably be the last time that I purchase this one. But I will continue to use it while I have it. If I'm like just wearing it for a shorter day, then it's fine. And the last foundation that I'm going to talk about, which I have done a whole review on, which I'll put a card up for. And this is the Belle Hypoallergenic Full Cover Foundation in 01 Ivory, which was a newer release from them. I just saw it on my Amazon page one day. It's got really nice coverage. Like I would say this is like a low full coverage foundation. It's not like extreme like Dermacol sort of coverage or anything like that, but it is really good coverage, I will admit. However, because it's quite good coverage, it is very easy to make this look a bit cakey. I did find like there were certain days when I would use it and like it's hard to get the right balance of putting enough on to get the coverage you want, but then putting on too much where it looks kind of cakey, heavy and like noticeable on the skin. It's kind of hard to find the balance with this. Overall, I feel like it looks nice on the skin. Pretty smooth looking, not dry at all, doesn't accentuate texture. However, as I said, I just feel like it can look a little bit heavy and a little bit cakey on the skin. That's my one sort of issue with it. And in the clip that I will insert in a minute, I just feel like it held up like reasonably well. It wasn't like as good as like the L'Oreal one that I found, but I feel like out of these three, this one probably did have the best wear. So I do think that this is decent, and I definitely think it's worth checking out. Unfortunately, there's only like 4 shades of it, so not everyone is really going to be able to try this, which is a bit disappointing. But if you can find a shade that's like sort of near your skin tone, you probably are going to have to use a white or a dark mixer with it. If you can find one, I would recommend giving it a go. I'm not saying it's the most amazing thing ever, but I think coverage is really good, finish is not bad, but again, can be a bit cakey. Maybe adjust the amount that you want to put on your skin, and it wears like reasonably well. Like, it didn't look like a total mess at the end of the day, which a lot of foundations tend to do on my skin. For some reason I was expecting this one to not wear so good, but I've just looked at my forehead and my forehead actually looks really good. There is like a slight little line that's kind of, I don't know if you can see that right there, but I think that was me. Like I think I like bashed my face into like a piece of like plastic or something at work. Other than that, like I feel like my forehead actually looks pretty good. There's like a tiny bit of texturization. But I think compared to the other two, I definitely feel like this is the best one. I feel like this is the best in terms of like how it's worn on my forehead. It has broken a bit down on my chin, but see, I don't know, I can't remember if I was touching my chin or what, but there is a bit of breakage on my chin, but these parts of my face, minus like my nose, look pretty good. I don't know, I had it in my head that this wouldn't be a really good wearing foundation, but I mean, I still don't think it's like the best. Like I have ones I prefer, like my L'Oreal one and my W7 ones, but I think that this actually wears like decently. I feel like it probably wears the best out of the 3. So yeah, I've not really found anything revolutionary here, but I feel like for me it's a tie between the NARS and Belle. I like how the NARS looks on the skin better, but I feel like the Belle one wears better and it also has a little bit better coverage. So let's move on to concealers. I tried 2 concealers. I tried another NARS product, which was the Creamy Radiant Concealer, and again, I have tried this before, like 2 to 3 years ago, so it wasn't technically a first impression, but again, quite a long period of time since I last tried it, so it was kind of like trying it from fresh, really. And then I also bought the Cover FX, what's it called? The Power Play Concealer. This one is in the shade N Fair 2, which I think is the lightest shade that isn't the white one. NARS concealer is in the shade Chantilly Light 1, which I'm pretty sure is the lightest shade. They're both pretty decent colours. I find I can use them under my eyes and on my face, so that's great. But I did film like a little clip just earlier today, just trying them out both on my under eye and on my eyelid, just to show you the coverage side by side. I did come to the conclusion that the NARS one does have a little bit better coverage. None of these are like super full coverage concealers, but they are pretty good coverage, like high, medium, low fill coverage, I would say. I'm personally happy with the level of coverage, but if you're the sort of person that likes, wow, amazing coverage, then I would say they're not quite there. Like, they're pretty close, but they're not quite there. I'd say the Jouer Essential High Coverage and the e.l.f. Camo Concealer fall into that category for me personally, as like full coverage. But these are like, you know, just on the cusps, like we're almost there, but not quite. But they're enough coverage for me personally. So the Cover FX one is more sort of like moisturising in formula. It's not a super dry one, and the NARS one, I feel like it's not super matte, but it's definitely a bit more matte in formula. It's definitely not got a lot of oil for it, so I feel like people with more oily skin, I feel, would like the NARS one, whereas people with more dry skin, I feel, would like the Cover FX one more. Just from my observations, correct me if I'm wrong here, my skin is more sort of like normal, can be a little bit dry sometimes, but I personally get along with both of these. So the only sort of issue that I have with these, and I kind of just have this issue with all concealers, full stop really, is that they do settle into my lines quite a bit, which can then sometimes affect like the powder I put on. It can sometimes look a bit like separate-y under my eyes with the powder, but I just find that like the majority of concealers I'm using, especially like the more coverage that they have, the more they tend to do it, And as I said, these have got quite good coverage, not full fold, but pretty good. They do just sell into my lines, and it's just like, it's something that I can't really avoid. However, I do like the fact that they're both not like super dry. I do find that the more drier formula concealers I just tend to not like in my eye area. I just feel like they look way too like dry. But even though these settle into the lines a bit, I do overall think that the finish of them is not too bad. I think that these are both decent concealers. I don't think I would buy the Cover FX one again, just because even though I like it, I don't feel like it's like revolutionary or anything. There's nothing like particularly special about this concealer. As I said, it's not full coverage, and it's not like the most smooth looking. So I mean, I like it, I do like it, but I don't think I'd buy it again just because it is a really expensive concealer. If it was like more cheaper, then I probably would consider buying it again, but because it's so expensive, I probably won't. And with the NARS one, like, I'm a little bit conflicted. Part of me would buy it again, and part of me is like, but it is so expensive, and you've got like cheaper concealers that you like more. So I don't know, I feel like maybe I'd buy it again, maybe I wouldn't. I'm not 100% sure of this one, but I do like it. I'd say overall I think I do prefer the NARS one just a little bit, just because of the extra coverage, I think. And I do feel like this one sells into lines a tiny bit less than the Cover FX one. Not by a lot, but a little bit. So I thought I would just quickly show you the NARS concealer and the Cover FX concealer next to each other, just so you can kind of see the light coverage differences. I put the Cover FX one first, so it has settled into my lines a bit more, but I don't know if the NARS one just needs a little bit more time to kind of catch up. But if I'm being honest, I think that the Cover FX one is slightly less coverage. So this is a Cover FX one on this side. Like, it's still pretty decent coverage. Like, I mean, it does get rid of my veins quite a lot. It does get rid of my under eye bags quite a lot. I mean, I think it looks good. It's also like a more moisturising sort of formula, I find. This was definitely not a super matte formula concealer. But if we go to the NARS, which is on this side, I personally feel like this just has a little bit more coverage. It also, I feel like it's a bit more of a matte formula, but it's not super drying either. So I quite like that. But like, I feel like it just blanks out the veins on my eyelid a little bit more. Yeah, it definitely is both of these are definitely selling into my lines quite a bit, but generally I find that hard to avoid, full stop, with most concealers. But yeah, I just feel like it's got like, it's not like massive difference or anything, but I don't know, if you just look at them side by side, I just feel like the NARS one, which is on this side, just has like a tiny bit more coverage. So I don't know. You might disagree with me, but I thought I'd just show you them side by side. I just personally think that the NARS one has just a little bit more coverage. So setting powder was the only thing that I couldn't use today from powders I tried in June and July, because the NARS powder that I bought is completely empty now. Okay, I lied, there was like a tiny bit in the pan, but it wasn't really usable. Like, it's sort of like falling apart, so it's kind of unusable at this point. But this was the Soft Velvet Pressed Powder in the shade Snow. And then the other powder that I bought in July, was it July or June? In July, was the Nabla Close Up Smoothing Pressed Powder in the shade Light, which I can't use because it literally makes my skin orange. I feel like when you look at it like that, it looks like there's not really going to be a colour issue. Like, it looks pretty pale, right? It makes me orange. If you watch that first impressions video, you basically see my face go from like my skin colour to orange very fast. So the only thing I can really use this for is like setting my eyelids for like eyeshadow, which I did do today, but I just can't use it on my face, so I can't really say much about this. I mean, it's just standard pressed powder, but it only comes in 3 shades, and on my pale skin it personally like oxidized my makeup a lot and just made me orange. So for me, this powder is a no. I regret buying it because I can't really do anything with it. The NARS powder, obviously I did use it quite a lot, but I also feel like it lasted a particularly long time because I didn't wear it like every single day or anything. I wore it like maybe like 4 times a week or something. Definitely goes down like really fast. For me anyway, maybe I just put way too much powder on, probably. Obviously, I didn't have any issues with the shade. It was pretty light, but it didn't make me look ghostly or anything. Yeah, definitely no like oxidation or orange issues with this one. I think like as far as pressed powders go, because I am having so many issues with pressed powders just looking like really bad, especially in my eye area. They tend to look fine on the rest of my face. It's just like my eyelids and my under eyes, like things just go wrong. Sometimes it would look alright under there, sometimes it wouldn't. Again, I think a lot of it depends on what concealer, what foundation I've got underneath, if I've put a bit too much on. I thought that kit looked okay, but I don't think it did anything amazing to my skin. Like, it set my makeup, it mattified it really well. But, like, some days it could look a bit cakey, other days it didn't look too bad. I think, for me, it's an alright powder, but because it's so expensive, I probably wouldn't buy it again. But I thought it was okay for what it was.
What are you up to?
I'm filming a video.
Filming a video?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so moving on to bronzers. I tried 2 different bronzers. I tried the MUA Bronze Perfection Matte Bronzer in Sunset Tan, and I tried the Milani Silky Matte Bronzing Powder in 01 Sunlight, which I think is a newer release. It came to Beauty Bay like a couple of days before I bought it anyway. Whereas this MUA one I think's been around for a while. So with this MUA one, I do personally prefer the newer bronzers that they brought out, the ones that are in a smaller pan. I think the shade I have is like 100 Solar. I personally just like the shade of that one a bit better. This one strikes me as more sort of like reddish in tone. I just feel like it's not the perfect shade for my pale skin. I personally prefer that other MUA one because it's a bit more like caramelly. It's got a bit more of like a yellow sort of base to it. Whereas this one's got a bit more of a redder base to it, which I personally prefer a more sort of yellow base to my bronzers. Either that or a more sort of like neutral sort of bronzer shade. This is not bad, like it's a fairly decent bronzer for a cheap price, but I personally just like the other MUA one more. I feel like sometimes it could look a tiny bit patchy, like not majorly or anything. I don't know, like I don't know, like it's not bad, like try it, sure, it's super cheap. But I don't know, it's just not my favourite. I just feel like I wouldn't consider this to be one of the best bronzers that I found this year. The Milani one, however, I do like this one quite a lot actually. I do feel like the shade is a bit more suited to me. It is a very like fair skin friendly shade. I feel like this one does have a more sort of neutral sort of undertone to it. I wouldn't say it's super red or anything. It does have like a few different colour options though. I don't know like how extensive the shade range is or anything, but for pale skin I personally think that this is a pretty decent shade. I think the formula of it's pretty good. It's quite pigmented. The way I like to apply this is just more sort of like tap it onto the skin and then tap it out with like my blending brush, and I find that's the best way that I find that works really well. I have got the Milani one on today. I think it's really nice. It's a really nice bronzer, definitely. I would recommend it if you can find a shade that works for you. But yeah, this one isn't bad. Like, I'm not saying it's terrible, but I just personally think it's not the best bronzer I found, and I personally like the other MUA one as well, and they're like around the same price, so I would say get one of those ones instead. So highlighters now. So I've got the Pop Beauty Celestial Light Highlighter, and then I also have the Milani Holographic Beams 02 Stellar Lights Highlighter Palette, which is a little threesome here. I think the Pop Beauty one, last time I was looking, I couldn't see it on Superdrug, so I don't know if they've discontinued it on there or something, which is weird because I feel like it only came like a few months ago, so I don't know why they've discontinued it so fast. They do have like a website though where you can get their products. I'm thinking of maybe like trying some more Pop Beauty makeup because they have got like pretty much everything on there. So I don't know, in the future I might do a full face testing Pop Beauty, we'll see. Because I've not really seen an awful lot about that brand personally. Maybe I'm just not looking hard enough. I think this is an absolutely gorgeous highlighter. I think you can see from my indentations that I have used it a lot. I have also got this one on today. I think it's really nice. I honestly think it's a pretty stunning highlighter, and I did include it in my mid-year makeup favourites because honestly I think it's really nice. I can't really fault it. It's beautiful. Works on my skin tone really well. Again, they have got a few other colour options. Looks really nice on the skin. It just looks super dewy and ethereal and beautiful, and looks really good in the inner corner as well, I find. The only downside to this is that it's like $12.99, so it's not the cheapest highlighter out there. You can get like a Revolution one for cheaper, and I personally think Revolution has some banging highlighters. But it's also not the most expensive. Definitely not either. But I think that it is a nice highlighter, and it's worth checking out in my opinion. I think it's really nice. It just looks so pretty. Like, look at it. Like, look. I didn't need more nose highlighter, but we've got it. I would say I don't like the Milani one as much, but not because there's anything wrong with it. It's basically just the colours. They are a bit more sort of out there sort of shades. They're not as wearable as this Pop Beauty one. I feel like the most wearable one for me is probably the more pinky toned one, but they are really pigmented. I do generally like Milani formulas because I really like their little single highlighters. I can't remember what they're called. I just know that the one I had was in the shade like Afterglow, and I really liked that one. I think the formula is pretty on par with those. I think they are super pigmented, super pretty. They're just not like the sort of shades that I'd wear on like an everyday sort of basis, because they are more sort of like holographic. I mean, the palette is literally called Holographic Beams, so you know, sometimes I do like colours like this, some days I don't. It really just depends. The bronzy one, sometimes I use it to top over my bronzer, but I obviously can't use that for highlight because it would be too dark for my skin tone. I think this is not bad, like the quality's good, it just really depends on what sort of shades you're after. Okay, so brows now, and this went well in terms of pencils, but it went pretty badly in terms of gels. I got one of the little mini ABH, what are they called? Dip brow gels. Mine's in the shade dark brown. This is one of the minis, but I feel like it's a pretty like big size for a mini. Some full size eyebrow gels you buy are like the same size as this, so you know. And then I also got the Barrier M brow one, which has got a gel and a pencil one, but I bought this for the gel. I was never really interested in the pencil because it is more of like this sort of angular one, and I prefer like more micro brow pencils. Although I have recently bought a micro brow pencil that is also angular, which will be in my latest first impressions video. It's the Makeup Obsession one. So when I saw the gel, I was like, yeah, that looks totally up my street. It's got a really tiny wand, the colour looks good, that looks amazing. However, it just picks up way too much product. There's just far too much excess on it. You just have to wipe off so much on your hands, and even when you do, I just feel like I don't like the way it disperses product. I just feel like it looks too thick and like not natural at all. So for me, the brow gel is just a miss, and it's really annoying because it looks like it would be my thing, but it's just not. It's just, the brush is fine, it's just the formula. It's just not for me, personally. I just want something a bit more natural. Best brow gel I've found so far is the e.l.f. one that has a similar sort of format. And the ABH one, the one is like a little bit bigger. It's not massive or anything, but I generally prefer like the size of the Barrier M one as opposed to something like this. But again, I've got the same sort of problem. It just disperses way too much product. I'll have like a whole hand full of like excess brow products because I'm trying to wipe it off so that it doesn't look super splodgy and thick on my brows. But even when I do wipe it all off, it still just doesn't look great. I just don't get any precision because it's just so like bleh onto my eyebrows, if you get what I mean. So what I have been doing a lot this month is just using micro brow pencils on their own, because I tend to just use the makeup that I've used in first impressions because I'm trying to like review it, so for these videos, if you get what I mean. So what I've been doing a lot is just using clear gel, micro brow pencil on its own, and then setting it with a clear gel, and I've actually been quite liking that. Generally, I do prefer tinted gel, micro brow pencil, and that's it. I feel like I just get a little bit more definition that way. My brow just looks a bit more complete. These are both really good though, so I've got the Max Factor Brow Shaper Ultra Fine Shape Fill Define 30 Deep Brown, which I did include in my mid-year favourites because I think it's a pretty decent brow pencil. And I also got the Nabla Brow Divine in Uranus, which I also think is decent. I don't really have like a favourite. A few days ago, I decided that I would just fill my brows in with pencil, and I did the Max Factor on one side and the Nabla on the other, just to see if there was any sort of like difference or anything I preferred. Generally, I thought that they both did the exact same thing. They both have the same sort of soft formula. They don't come out too harsh. They're very smooth. Like, they just both kind of do the exact same thing. The colours are also very similar, so I can't really say I prefer one over the other. I just think these are both pretty good micro brow pencils. I think the Max Factor one's a little bit cheaper, so I'll give it to the Max Factor one because it's a little bit cheaper. But I'd recommend both of these. They're both really good, in my opinion. And we also tried out two kohl liners. So I've got the Nabla Long Lasting Matte Eye Pencil in Bombay Black. And I've got the Maybelline Tattoo Liner Gel Pencil in Deep Oinks, which I included in my mid-year favourites. Really like this. I have put the Nabla one on this eye and the Maybelline one on this eye, and you probably won't be able to tell much difference really. I like the Maybelline one a bit more. It just lasts really well and it's super pigmented, super creamy. Only kind of problem is with this is that it does dry up if you leave the lid off it, but I mean the solution to that is just don't leave the lid off it, you know. Sharpens well. I think this is like top quality kohl pencil. I really like it personally. I can't really think of any faults with it. It just shows up super well and it stays on my eyes pretty much all day. Obviously there's a little bit of fading, but like nothing major. The Nabla one, in my opinion, like it's not quite as pigmented as the Maybelline one. Like obviously it's pigmented enough, you can definitely like see it in my eye, it's present. I don't know, because I use so many kohl pencils, I feel like it's just a bit nitpicky of me, but I just noticed that it doesn't have quite the same like opaqueness, if it's not the word, as other kohl pencils that I've tried recently. This one does last really well though. I did like compare the wear, so I did the same thing I've done today where I put different one in each eye, and I felt like they wore pretty similarly. Like the Nabla one had like a few more little dots, you know, where it kind of fades, but nothing majorly different to the Maybelline one. I feel like they both last really well. So the Nabla one's not a bad eyeliner pencil, but I personally would go for the Maybelline one over it, and again I also think this is cheaper. So the two mascaras that I tried, first one was the Max Factor 2000 Calorie Colour Dit Rich Volume and Curl Mascara, which comes in this black and red tube here. And then I also tried the Michelin Intense Volume Mascara, which has got a nice black and pink packaging. Again, I have Michelin on this eye, and I've got the Revlon, the Max Factor one on this eye. And I didn't like the Max Factor one at first. In that first impressions video, I was a bit like underwhelmed with it, but I definitely found that the more I kind of left it, the better it got. Like as it sort of dried out, I felt like I got more from it. Like looking at it now, I feel like it looks not bad. Like not the best mascara I've used ever, but it looks pretty good. Like I've got some decent volume there. I would say it's quite good at lengthening as well. It does dry up quite fast, and it is a more dry formula mascara generally, so I feel like it does take much longer to build it up than like this Michelin one, which is a bit more moist in formula. Sorry, I know people hate that word. So yeah, you definitely have to have more patience with this one, I find, but I do feel like overall it is a very good like sort of lengthening mascara. You just need to kind of wait like a week or two before it kind of gets into its prime. Michelin one, however, is pretty much great from day one. I think it's really good. Like it definitely gives some really great volume, some really great length. Like I think this is a really decent, like cheap, affordable mascara, and I definitely think it's worth checking out. Neither of these mascaras like smudge weirdly or don't come off well with my cotton bud or anything like that. Don't have any issues with that with either of these. So the other day when I put these side by side, I did notice that I felt like the Max Factor one like opened up my eye a bit more, but when I look at it today, I feel like the Michelin one's actually doing it more, so I can't really say anything with that. I think that just depends on how I apply it each day. So I think these are both decent mascaras, but I just feel like the Max Factor one has a bit more issues with it, so I would recommend the Michelin one over it. But I think this is a really good mascara and probably going to be one of my yearly favourites, this one. I think it's really good. I'll just show it to you like close up there. You can definitely see it's giving me some great impact on my lashes, and I'll give you a close up of the Max Factor one. Like I also think that looks pretty good. Like in my opinion, that looks pretty decent as well. So eyeshadow, this guy. So this is the Revolution Maxi Reloaded palette in Monster Matte, and I've seen a few reviews of this, and I just have to say it's not my favourite Revolution palette, and I do generally like Revolution eyeshadows, so I'm not slagging off Revolution eyeshadows. I have a lot of them. I really like them. I literally am going to buy 3 more Revolution eyeshadow palettes next month, so you know. I just think for me this one was a bit underwhelming. It's just some of the shades are just really not pigmented at all. It's got a lot of chalkiness, a lot of patchiness I find with these. Some of the shades are fine. I do find the more sort of neutral ones, like the reds, the browns, I feel like work pretty well, but like I wouldn't buy this palette for all those shades. I'd buy it for like the yellows and the greens and maybe the more sort of pastel-y ones, but I just don't feel like they're the pigmented ones, you know. They just don't do it for me. I just don't think the quality is up there. Again, there are some shades in here that work reasonably well, and I have used like some of the browns today. Like I used this light brown up here for my crease, and I thought that one was pretty good, sort of gingerbready sort of colour. It's not completely terrible, but in my opinion, if you're thinking of getting a Revolution eyeshadow palette, I would avoid this one. I think they've got way better ones on offer. Neutrals versus neutrals. The Shook palette, one of my favourites from this year. Soph's palettes, Tammy's palettes. There's also way more palettes that are on my like to buy list. Like I want to buy some of the new I Heart Revolution palettes. I want to buy Kami's palette. But for me, this one was just a bit no, and like I did give it a chance. Did a solid eyeshadow look like about 4 times of this. I really did try, and like I really did try and use different shades. I did like a purple look at one point. I mean, generally speaking, when it comes to like more sort of pastel-y colours, maybe it is because I'm quite pale that they don't show up as well. But even then, I just felt like they looked kind of like chalky and patchy, like the texture of them wasn't great. But maybe if you've got like a deeper skin tone, maybe the pastel ones would show up a bit like nicer. For me, I would avoid this. Like, I'm not saying it's completely awful, but I just don't like it enough. Like, next eyeshadow declutter I do, it's probably gonna go. Did try another little eyeshadow palette though, which I like quite a lot. This is from Gosh. This is the 9 Shade Shadow Collection in 006 to Rock Down Under. And I have tried a few of these little eyeshadow collections that they do in the same sort of like packaging. I tried the more smoky one, and then there was one called To Party in London, which had quite a lot of shimmers in it. This one is more of a like sort of reddy, autumnal kind of palette. It's pretty much all mattes except the gold shimmer shade up there, which I have got in the centre of my lids today, and it's a really nice shimmer shade. It shows up really well. It's super pigmented. I really like it. I think that this is a really good quality eyeshadow palette. I mean, the only kind of issue I have with this is that you're obviously a bit limited with what you can do with it. So I would only really recommend getting this if you know that you're going to use these shades and these are the type of colours that you like. But I think that all of the mattes are super easy to work with. They blend super well. They show up super well. They're pigmented. They're smooth. They're not patchy. Like, this is just definitely a better formula than that Revolution palette, that's for sure. And I think they're around the same price. I think that Revolution palette was £10. I think this is like $11.99 or something like that. I don't know. So I mean, obviously it's not super duper cheap or anything, but I think the quality of it kind of justifies the price in my opinion. I think this is good. So if you're into like warm toned neutrals and you like a lot of mattes, this is a really nice little palette. I've used it quite a lot throughout the month. I've also used it a lot like over the top of foundation, because normally I do my eyeshadow looks before I do my base makeup, but because I've been having a lot of issues with like powders like separating under my eyes and just looking bleh, I tend to put eyeshadow on over the top of my base now, and I've used this a lot for that because obviously it's more neutral shades, and I found that they don't have a lot of fallout either, which is great when you are doing your makeup over the top of a base. We'll recommend this. As well as the other Gosh palettes, I've liked those as well. Okay, so I've got a few lip products. So the one that I've got on today is the Revolution Creme lipstick. Creme. Just this creme. In the shade Chauffeur, which, yes, I have got this one on my lips today. I did also put a little bit of powder on to mattify it. These don't dry down matte. They have got a more sort of glossier formula. They're not like super duper sticky or anything, but they're definitely not matte at all. The thing that I do like about this is it is literally like the same colour as my lips. It is the epitome of like your lips but better. But again, I've not really used it a lot because I generally do gravitate more towards matte bullet lips on a regular basis. Which brings us on to this guy, which is the Revolution Matte Lipstick in Head Turner 121, which I have used more often. I've used this quite a lot the last 2 months. The shade is really nice. It's kind of like a sort of brownie nude sort of shade. I really like this personally. The colour's totally up my street. More sort of matte formula, a bit dry. Some people might find this a bit too dry, but I personally like it for me. I find this is a really just solid matte bullet lipstick, and it's the sort of thing that I personally like to use more on a regular basis. When I go to work, I can just pop it on in the car, you know what I mean? And I did include this in my midget favourites because I like it. I just like it. I use it, you know? I haven't used this one an awful lot, to be honest. This is the Nabila liquid lipstick in the shade Stronger. I just generally don't use liquid lipsticks that often, and yeah, I continue to buy them for some reason. It's quite like a sort of MAC Stone sort of colour. It's like quite a deep sort of grungy sort of browny grey sort of colour, so obviously it's not like a nude or anything. It's not the most wearable shade. But I think it was like about a week ago I thought I'd wear it for work and just see what happened. The only thing I really remember is when I went to go take my makeup off at night, there was nothing on my lips. So I'd put it on in the afternoon. By the end of the night, there was no remains whatsoever. Normally when I have a liquid lipstick and like I eat food or whatever, it comes off quite a lot, but there's still like an outline of lipstick, if you know what I mean. There was like nothing there. It was just completely gone. It's like I'd never put it on. So probably not the best wear. And also, I mean, it's a liquid lipstick, so it's naturally going to be quite dry. And, you know, there's not really any difference with this it's pretty dry. The colour is pretty though, and it's fairly smooth to put on. It has a nice scent, so I mean it's not bad, but it was literally gone by the end of the day. It wasn't remotely there, which is weird for a liquid lipstick, because normally, especially a deeper colour, like you'll see something there. There'll be a ring or some sort of outline, but no, there was nothing there. Didn't try any setting sprays, so I think that's it. So I'm just trying to like conclude here. I think the best products I probably tried were the micro brow pencils, Maybelline eyeliner, Michelin mascara, Pot Beauty highlighter, Revolution bullet lipstick, and the Gosh eyeshadow palette. Those were my ultimate favourites, but obviously I still like some of the other ones, but those were the ones I'd pick out as highlights for the last 2 months, definitely. As for things that I think are just full stop bad, both of the brow gels, the Barry M one, the Anastasia one, nah. Makeup Revolution Monster Mattes, nah. Nabla foundation, not awful, but I definitely wouldn't recommend buying it personally. So what's that Nabla setting powder if you're pale? Makes you orange. Sorry, but it makes you orange. Definitely a mixed bunch of products here, but as I said, a lot of really good ones, a lot of favourites. I did include a lot of them in my mid-year favourites. Obviously, I didn't include anything that I tried in July because it was just from January to June, and obviously half of these products were from June, half were from July, so I might have added more if I was including July. I don't know. Oh, I almost forgot to mention these guys. So I tried these in my June first impressions, but they were the Moon Glow Neon Pigment Shaker things, and I got like about 8 of these in like different sort of neon colours because I do really like neon colours. Forgot to mention these. If I'm being honest, I just found these very patchy, very difficult to work with. I tried all sorts of bases with them. I tried just a standard concealer and powder. I tried like a pigment primer. I tried not setting. I tried different ways of using these, and I just found that they always looked really patchy, and like sometimes they'd look really awfully patchy to the point where I was like, yeah, I can't have this on my eyes. It's just no. They are very pigmented, like the neon shows up super well, they're incredibly vibrant. I feel like they'd probably be better if you just wanted like some sort of festival makeup and just to put like a bit of stripe of neon on your face or something, but for like a detailed, intricate eye look, I just don't think these are quite the quality that I personally, and I know a lot of other people, would want. So they're pigmented, but in my opinion they're just patchy, and they're also quite difficult to blend, especially like with each other and with any eyeshadow really. They just don't blend into other eyeshadows very well. So for me these were a little bit of a letdown, but I mean again, like if you're at a festival and you just want some neon on your face, but nothing like precise and amazing and then yeah, I guess, but I mean these were just a little bit of a disappointment for me. Now I've mentioned everything. So that's my thoughts on all of the makeup I tried in June and July, and my next makeup recap will be my August and September one, which will be up in, it's going to be November really, isn't it? So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!